Hello there, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Life podcast and YouTube channel. You know me, I'm Art Burns. Can you remember me anyway? I know it's been a while. But I wanted to first say, before we get into what we're talking about today in the podcast, I wanted to say that I actually did hear from one of our community members, one of our listeners and viewers, a person with the initials LZ. I won't say any more than that, but LZ. He reassured me, and the term that he used was that he prefers quality over quantity. And of course, what I'm talking about is the fact that, as I've struggled with or been working through with all of you, in front of all of you for a while now, and when I first started this project of the Showing Up to Life podcast, even before I called it the Showing Up to Life podcast, and even before I started numbering the episodes and all that, it was meant to be a daily thing, right? And something about, something in my mind was telling me that the daily sort of cadence of it was the value, right? That the inherent value was in that daily, providing that daily content, right? And what LZ, when he says that, it's about quality over quantity, what I've realized is exactly that now that I'm not beholden to a daily or even a weekly, any sort of cadence, there's no expectations of either of us. And so a couple of really beautiful, important things have happened in this process. Number one, I find that the content is it's more solid. It feels more solid from my point of view, and from what I've heard from a few of you, it sounds like you feel the same way. And I think what's happening is that, when we try to do something every day, you don't know if it's going to be there every day, right? Like you can't just make it special if you're doing it every single day. It's not going to be special every single day is what I should say. And so that, it almost felt like it got to feeling like I was somehow chasing something and I was trying to make something happen. Whereas now it feels much more like I'm allowing it to come to me, right? I'm allowing the ideas and the concepts and the structure of this to arise in a natural way, in a creative way. And it feels more solid this way. And then the other thing that's happening, which is really fascinating, is something I'm really happy to see, is that it's now, and this is not for me, right? It's not like the dopamine fix that I get from seeing all the people listening and stuff, but the viewership and the listenership, both on YouTube and in the podcast, is much, much higher than it has ever been. So what it seems to be is that if I give a couple of weeks in between each episode, it gives more time for people to find it and to listen and to watch and to hopefully learn and to hopefully heal and to hopefully, really benefit from this work. So I just wanted to say that, it's really been going very, very well, even though there is part of me that feels like I miss doing it every day in a weird way. And I miss like sort of, when I do this, I feel like I'm connecting to you as I'm speaking right now. Right. And so that part is not there every day, which feels like, oh man, I miss that. Right. But again, seeing it without judgment and seeing it with, in the context of what is real, right? Well, it seems like it's going well. It seems like it's beneficial to do it this way. So, and I think there's a lesson there, right? I think that we tend to go by what it feels like to us as we decide what we're doing, how we're doing it, whatever that is, whether it's a podcast or it's some, a diet or a hobby or an activity of some kind. We tend to, judge the value of that thing by how we feel as we're doing that thing. Yeah. And what that means is that, it's a false, there's not necessarily a truth to that, right? Because the feeling is based on a lot of other stuff rather than the reality of what's happening, right? And so now as I see this data and I see the fact that, wow, it feels better to me, it seems to feel better to others, and it also seems that more people are getting to see it, well, then obviously my feelings are not the truth. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not to say that my feelings are wrong, but I'm saying that my feelings are based on something that is not the actual truth, the actual reality in front of us. And I think, again, I think this is a lesson that we could all learn from, right? Because so many times we do guide ourselves by the way we feel. But, one day to another, maybe you didn't get so much sleep, or maybe you, like me, getting over a cold, or maybe there's some, you haven't eaten enough today. Well, then that's throwing off the feelings. And of course, I'm just naming a couple of brief examples out of millions of potentials, right? Of ways in which that our experiences can influence our feelings, which then influences what we believe to be true. And so this is what we talk about in mindfulness. We talk about delusion, right? Not delusion as in a psychopathy, right? Like where you're, schizophrenic or something like that, but rather a delusion in just the nature of not seeing things as things really are, but rather, as I think the poet Rumi says, we see things not as things, or we see the world not as the world is, we see the world as we are, right? And then, of course, that tied into things like, back when I was doing this every day, I would feel like stressed from having to do it every day. And then that stress drives like a little bit of panic. And, well, what if I don't do it well enough? Am I an imposter? Is everybody going to hate me? And all these other things go on. And remember, once we get into that delusion and the aversion and the attachment that come from that delusion, that's when we're going to experience negative emotions. We're going to experience tension in our body, and we're going to experience, the thought pattern or the thoughts in our mind that are going to be, pessimistic and judging and self-critical and all catastrophizing and all kinds of stuff that, again, is not true. And so I wanted to offer that to you as a little brief sort of intro lesson, okay? And I think it maybe ties into what I want to talk about today. And what I do want to talk about today is something that came up with a client that I was working with just the other day, just a couple of days ago. And, Alan Watts talks about this a lot. And I don't know how many of you have listened to Alan Watts, but I highly, highly recommend. Now, Alan Watts has been, he passed away sometime, I think, around 1973 or something like that. So you're not going to see him live at this point, but he's got tons of stuff. If you go on YouTube, you can search out, Alan Watts, AlanWatts. Alan Watts has done a lot of writing and a lot of work around both Buddhism and also Taoism, right, which is a different sort of Chinese philosophy, which has to do with, letting things flow, right? Like they call one of the sort of nicknames, if you will, of Taoism is the watercourse way, right? Which is to say that water, when water flows, right, water doesn't try to push through something, right? Water doesn't try to meet with force, right? Of course, if it's a deluge, anything in the way is getting completely smashed, right? But that's not the nature of water, right? Water, as it flows down a stream, right, it's yielding. It finds the path of least resistance, right? So if there's a big boulder in the way of where the stream is going, the stream is going to work its way around the boulder. But then ultimately, now this is not to indicate that we're not, that water's not powerful, because water created the Grand Canyon, right? Water will dislodge that boulder eventually, but it doesn't do so with force. It does so with a yielding nature that is, a little softer, but yet also very powerful. And so Taoism is like that, right? It's about letting things flow. Okay. And one of the things that Alan Watts talks about, and there's a real modern neuroscientific basis for this as well, is that life is about play, right? And he actually sometimes refers to it as a dance, right? Like when if people are in a ballroom dancing, right? There's no point in the dancer's mind where you think, okay, I have to make these certain moves to get to that certain point over there on the dance floor, right? But yet, as you're going and you're feeling the dance and you're free in the dance, you wind up over there, right? And so life is like this, okay? And again, I want to be sure that you understand that we got some science coming on this, okay? This is not just a matter of, sort of, woo-woo philosophy, if you will, right? That, just let go, surrender, and everything's going to be fine. But there's a truth to that, okay? And so when we talk about life is play, okay, let me tell you what I mean by that first. Okay, now the first thing I don't mean, okay, what I want to say first is what I don't mean, which is that life is not a game. Okay, because games are meant to win or lose, right? In any game, there's a winner and a loser. And if we lose the game, we feel like, okay, I need to do better next time. I need to figure out how to win the game. And that's not what we mean when we say life is play. What we mean by play is that, think of children, right? And I mean, there's again a lot of information, a lot of study, a lot of research that shows that children learn far more efficiently when they are at play, when they learn through play rather than learning through instruction and testing and all that kind of stuff that we, do in schools, right? But it's when children are allowed to play is when they really learn at it's, studies show that it's like 10 times more efficient. So it's really amazing. Why is this? Okay. So there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, when we're in that state of play, we are in our creative place, right? When we're in a state of, doing something to win or lose, then we're in our survival place. Okay, we're in that place that's in the fight or flight neighborhood, right? We're in that very alarmist and reactive place in our nervous system, in our brain, in our thoughts, our emotions, our body. But when we're just playing, right? Like, let's play catch, if you will, or let's play with these blocks, or let's play with some crayons, let's play music, right? That there's no end goal for that. The play is just about the play. It's just about right here, right now, having fun and enjoying what it is that we're doing. Okay. Now, the difference here, remember I said when we're against winning or losing something, we're in that survival point of our brain and our nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is at play at that point. But when we're playing just to play, then we're in that creative mode of our body. We feel safe. And when we feel safe, we do not experience stress. And when we do not experience stress, we're not experiencing the chemicals of cortisol and adrenaline and norepinephrine, which are called the uncreative chemicals, right? It puts us into a place of non-creativity. And this is where we're able to really flow with whatever is happening right here, right now. Now, as I say this, it might sound to some of you, and I know it sounded this way to me at first too, is that, well, that means that I'm not taking my life seriously. And if I'm not taking my life seriously, well, then what happens then, right? Like how does life not fall apart while I'm busy playing, right? And again, that's something else that I want to address, that, if you ask a child, this play that you're doing, the child is going to think that it's very, very serious what they're doing. This is very important. It's not to be dismissed. It's not to be, seen as something that doesn't matter. It's very important. But we can still be playful with it. Now, what does that mean exactly, to be playful with something? Now, again, I say that it has this tendency to say, it's not serious if we're playful, okay? But I want to tell you from my own personal experience, as I was thinking about this episode the last couple of days, I realized, well, hold on a second. Now, I play hockey every week. Now, yes, hockey is also a game that there's a winner and a loser, right? Let's set that aside just for a second, right? As I am playing hockey, okay, you better believe I am trying my best, okay? I'm trying as hard as I can possibly try to do the things that seem appropriate in the hockey game, right? Which means, I skate very hard. I try to skate as hard as I can, as fast as I can. I try to shoot the puck past the goalie. I'm not just flipping it to the goalie and say, hey, I'm proud of you, you made a save. No, I'm trying to beat him. I am trying to win, right? And again, let's set that aside for a second. But the idea of play does not mean that we're not trying. It doesn't mean that it's not important. It doesn't mean that we're not committed to a positive outcome. And that's where we can bring back this idea of winning and losing, right? That as I said before, and maybe I was maybe a little, I should rephrase what I was saying, but when I said before that once there's a winning and a losing involved, we tend to get into that survival mode. But that's not really true. The thing that puts us in the survival mode is the feeling that losing is bad and that only winning is good. That's what puts us in the survival mode, because then we are afraid to lose. We are afraid to not win because losing is bad, right? And so it's not so much the action of having a game, for instance, it's being attached to the outcome of the game. Okay, so this is how I'm reconciling this statement that I just made. I hope that makes sense to all of you. And please let me know if it doesn't. If you have any questions about this, I'm more than happy to talk to you about this. But the idea here is, right, that so when I play hockey again, right, I am really trying as hard as I can try. And I'm my intention is to do the best that I possibly can do. However, I am doing that within the context of not being attached to the outcome of whatever the game is or whatever the play might be, which means, or effectively, I guess we could say that playfulness, when we approach life as play, which again is not to say that it's a game, like not to say that it doesn't matter, but that it's playful, right? Then I am able to not take winning and losing so seriously. Like that's the part that we don't take seriously. Like we take what we're doing very seriously, but we don't take the winning and losing part seriously. Okay, which means that when something does go wrong, when I fail somehow, how am I speaking to myself? That's the key here, okay? Because when I look at it as play, it's just a moment-by-moment experience that's, right now things are going really well. Yesterday or tomorrow, maybe things aren't going so well. But if I continue to play through the ups and the downs, well, then I don't beat myself up when I'm doing something that is not, successful, not right, not productive, not what have you, okay? And when I'm not beating myself up for it, then I'm able to engage in it even when it's not going that well. I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about. So I'm sure I've mentioned this story to you before, but and even if I have, it's worth hearing again. So Ram Dass, sometime, sort of in the later part of his career and his life, he used to do a lot of speaking at, universities and other organizations and stuff. That was what his thing was. He sat in front of a room full of people and he talked about, about his work, right? About the work, some of it involved mindfulness, of course, and meditation. I mean, a lot of meditation, but really from like a Hindu sort of perspective and philosophy. Okay. And so when Ram Dass, and you can watch videos, they're really wonderful. He's a really, really wonderful speaker and teacher. And if you watch him speak, it's very much a Hindu or a Hindi kind of vibe, right? Like you can see, gurus from India do the same thing, right? Where they'll be sitting on the stage or in the area where everybody's gathered around and watching them, and they'll be sitting in something like that looks kind of like an easy chair, right? And they're sitting back, they're relaxed, they're playful about it, right? And they're sitting back in this chair and they're just talking, right? It's not like a TED Talk where somebody's on stage, gesturing, and it's really just about being easy with it, okay? And so that's why they're sitting in an easy chair. But the thing is that if you're going to speak and you're sitting down like that with a microphone, then necessarily the microphone has to be on what we call a boom stand, okay? Which means that the stand is somewhere off to the side, right? The thing that's on the floor going straight up in the air is off to your side where there's a boom that brings the microphone right in front of your, where your face is, so you can move it around. You can, if I sit back like this, I can move the mic here. I have a boom mic here. You can see it, right? And so So he always requested the boom mic stand, right? Every time he gave a talk, because that was what was comfortable for him. Okay. So there's a story where one day he's about to give a talk at a university, and they assign him, I guess, some grad student or undergrad student, and this is Sheila. She's gonna show you around here, and she's gonna get you everything you need. She's your handler for the day, if you will. And so Sheila's taken, Ram Dass around, and they go into the auditorium where Ram Dass is going to do the talk. And she goes, okay, well, this is the stage, and this is and he saw right away that there was a microphone stand that was a traditional microphone stand, like you would see at a rock and roll concert, right? Where it's just a straight, stand up from the ground that's sitting in front of you, which again, you cannot use that if you're sitting back in a chair. You need to be able to move the microphone close to you, and you can't do that physically with a big mic stand like that, right? Now, Ram Dass, at that point in his career, I mean, we're talking about literally tens of thousands of hours of practice that this man has done. Tens of thousands. That is not an exaggeration at all. Okay, many monks report 40, 50,000 hours of practice in their life, right? So Ram Dass was at least like 20 or 30,000 hours at this point. Now, this man with 20 or 30,000 hours of practice, okay, he saw that mic stand and he lost it. And he describes this. He says, I got very tense all of a sudden. I got very angry and frustrated. And I said to this, 20-year-old girl, I said, what is with that mic stand? How could you people not, read my instructions and who, going on and on about it? And then he says, and this is really the beautiful part of the story, as he's doing this, as he's in his, ire and rage about this mic stand, and this poor Sheila is sitting there trembling. I don't know if her name was Sheila or not, but she's trembling that, oh my gosh, Ram Dass, the spiritual leader, is yelling at me. Like, how did I get this to happen? Pardon me. And so Ram Dass says in the middle of that, right, when he realized, just all of a sudden, boom, he realized that he was doing, as he described it, I got caught up in it, right? I became attached to something and I became triggered from it because the attachment was not there, right? What I expected was not happening. And so I became triggered. And he says at that second, the instant that I realized what I was doing and how this was going, he just started laughing. Now, if you know Ram Dass and you, again, watch a couple of videos and you'll see what I mean. When he says I laughed, it's not saying, oh gosh, no, he guffawed, like he laughed to fill the entire auditorium with a thundering laugh, a roaring laugh. Now, this is what I'm talking about. Okay, when Ram Dass, now there's two lessons here, right? Two very important lessons here. The first lesson is, and this is super, super important, that when, even somebody who's done tens of thousands of hours of practice still sometimes gets caught up in it. They still sometimes lose that sense of, want to call it mindfulness, want to call it acceptance, want to call it compassion, whatever it is. They lose it. We lose it. I do. You do. They do. Everyone does. Thich Nhat Hanh one time. Thich Nhat Hanh is like the embodiment of peace on earth. Used to be. And he even said that one time he got so angry he wanted to punch somebody in the nose. Thich Nhat Hanh. Ram Dass. All these, they get triggered. Just like you do. Just like I do. And the reason why I say this is such an important lesson is because mindfulness practices, all the things that we talk about here in the podcast and all the things that I teach and all the things that I can help you learn, it's never, ever, ever about rigidly adhering to some state of being. What it's about is allowing ourselves to be in that sort of movement of the, the emotions, the body, the thoughts, and the ability to return back to the here and now when we find ourselves caught up in it, as Ram Dass said. Okay? And so that's the first lesson that's super, super, super important. That even someone who does this for thousands of hours, they're not perfect with it. And nobody ever is. You're not going to be. I'm not going to be. Nobody's going to be. Ram Dass never was. Thich Nhat Hanh never was. And Thich Nhat Hanh is when people describe Thich Nhat Hanh, they call him Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh. I mean, you're talking about a true master. And still he would find himself in those moments, right? So the first lesson, again, is that you can't expect perfection. You can't expect rigidity of anything. You must recognize that you're going to fail sometimes. And that's with mindfulness practices, that's with our work, that's with our parenting, that's with our friendships and our relationships, and anything else we're doing. We're going to find failure. We're going to experience moments of difficulty. Now, the second lesson is more about the playfulness of it. When Ram Dass realized that he was triggered and becoming very, reactive and stressed and everything, he didn't say, "Damn it, Ram Dass, what's wrong with you? You've been doing all this work for so long, and look at you, you're such a stupid guy. Like, how could you be so dumb? Or how could you be such a failure?" He didn't say anything like that. What he did was he noticed it and said, "This is so funny. Look at me, this guy with tens of thousands of hours of practice, and look at me getting all uptight about this mic stand." Now, it doesn't mean that the mic stand wasn't important, right? Just like a child playing with a bunch of leaves in the yard, those leaves are very important. Ram Dass, the mic stand, is very important, and I'm sure that Sheila was sent away to get the right kind of mic stand, right? But that doesn't mean that Ram Dass had to be angry with himself. He didn't have to, beat himself up. He didn't have to, make himself suffer in the service of this mic stand. He saw it as a moment of hilarity. A moment of entertainment even, like he was entertained by his own failure. Now just listen to that. He was entertained by his own failure. If every time we fail, we can be entertained by that fail. We can be amused by it. We can be interested in it. We can be curious about it. We can turn towards the failure and say, what happened exactly? What is this silliness? Let me examine this. Let me really investigate this. Let me understand this more. Because as I understand it more, I don't get triggered as much next time, right? So again, it's not about just, when I say life is playful, it's not about saying, well, nothing matters. And therefore I'm not going to, I won't have any goals or any achievements or any responsibilities. It's all just a game, or all just play. So whatever, I'm just going to blah, blah, blah. No. It's not that. Remember, I'm sure that he sent Sheila away to the AV department to get the right kind of mic stand. I'm sure of it. Right? Because that's what he needed. He's Ram Dass. Hey, man, I'm the one that you're going to fill this room in a couple hours with people who are here to see me. You got to give me what I need for it. The difference is that he stayed in a place of well-being. He didn't go, or as soon as he recognized that he was in a state of non-well-being, he brought himself back to a state of well-being through the act of playfulness, or through the perception of playfulness, right? Because you can't be sitting there beating yourself up and also laugh. Like, those two things don't happen at the same time, right? It's one or the other. And so the fact that he laughed like that lets us know that he was lighthearted about it. He was playful about it. And it doesn't mean that he's not achieving things. Ram Dass achieved many great, great things. He wrote amazing books. He moved millions of people in their spirituality. He's done more than most of the serious people you can imagine. Same thing with Alan Watts. He had tremendous influence on people. Tremendous. But never once did he take it too seriously. And that doesn't mean, again, that doesn't mean that he didn't care. It doesn't mean that he wasn't trying hard. It doesn't mean that he didn't realize the importance of it. The difference is, again, in that way in which we talk to ourselves through it, in the way in which we perceive what it is that we're doing. And remember, when we're in a state of play, we feel safe. And when we feel safe, we are at our optimization, our creative best. And that gets us to the neuroscience, right? So as you've heard me talk a lot about, pardon me, having been sick, I can't get enough water. but you've heard me talk about Dr. Stephen Porges and the polyvagal theory. Okay, the polyvagal theory is this sort of a new understanding about how the vagus nerve, kind of works in the body and how it relates to the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. But really, what it is the functional understanding of this and the groundbreaking nature of this is that when we do not feel safe, okay, that influences the way that we think. Now that's obvious, right? Like say, well, yeah, if you don't feel safe, you're going to be worried, right? And that's not what I mean. That's not at all what I mean. What I mean is that when we, and it's not about somebody saying, I don't feel safe, right? It's about a neuroception of safety, right? Which is to say it's not conscious. It's your nervous system perceiving a sense of safety or or lack of safety. And when we feel that unsafe, we are going to experience, the stress in the body. Now, the stress in the body, as I've said here many times, but again, this is Stephen Porges' thing, is that it not just influences the thoughts in terms of like, okay, if I don't feel safe, I got to think about getting safe, right? That's not what I mean. What I mean is in that moment of not feeling safe, we feel, again, we're experiencing tension in our body, we're experiencing heavy emotions, and then we're experiencing the negative thoughts, but not to say, again, it's not about like, oh, I better figure out how to get safe. No, we're going to say like, I'm such a loser. We're going to say, this is so horrible what I have to go through right now. We're going to say, that guy over there is a jerk. We're going to say, these are the thoughts that are going to come up. Or we're going to look at a problem and we're going to think it's like 100 times bigger than it is. And we're going to, look at something that's joyful and we're going to minimize that to a 100th of what it is. That's what I mean about the way that not feeling safe influences the way we think. And so you cannot get to that place of creativity. You cannot get to that place of happiness in your emotions, your thoughts, or your body. And then that just becomes a cycle that keeps going and going and going. And that's where it looks like chronic stress and chronic issues and chronic, and ultimately chronic disease, right? This is where, autoimmune diseases come from. This is where, even a lot of doctors say that cancer is very, very, very much dependent on stress, right? Like a body that does not experience stress can't really, cancer has nothing to grow into at that point. Now, again, that's a much deeper topic, and I'm just sort of broad stroking that. So there's certainly a lot of exceptions, and that's not meant to be some kind of diagnosis or anything like that. But the idea again is that when we feel safe, that is when we are at our most creative. Where we are at our most optimized, where we are at our most connected. That's the other thing about Stephen Porges, is that he calls that feeling of safety, that baseline of our nervous system, when we feel like we're okay, we're grounded, we feel safe, that he calls that the social engagement state of our nervous system. Now, we are social animals. Even if you're a recluse, introvert like me, you still do connect to others, even if it's just in your thoughts and your heart, right? Like we are part of this human experience, all of us, and we are deeply interconnected with it. And we need that feeling of connection. That is a biological imperative, that we feel connected to other people or animals, or, we need connection. And we cannot find that connection if we don't feel safe. Now, one last thing. I know we're going long here, but one last thing. When I say that life is play, that doesn't mean that, like if if there's a bus coming, right, that, you got to get out of the way of the bus. That's not playful. That's serious, right? Like that is really important, right? Or let's say, better yet, you come across a car accident late at night and you're the only one around and there's somebody in the car that's hurt, right? It's not to say, oh, let's just play for a little while. Nothing really matters. No. In that moment, you got to get into action. You got to pull that person out of the car. You got to try to save them, right? That doesn't change. The thing that's different, though, is that how many times does that really happen, right? How many times are we really faced with a moment that is truly dangerous and truly, life or death, if you will? Many people live their lives without ever having that kind of moment, not once, right? Whereas other people, like firefighters, experience that every day, right? But so the point is, though, that it's okay to be very serious in that kind of moment, right? To be very, the outcome matters here, right? Because if the outcome, the outcome is either life or death, and that really matters more than anything, right? But how many times are we feeling that way? Right? It doesn't, we cannot equate that to just getting stuck in a traffic jam. We cannot equate that to, our food order coming out wrong or our Starbucks coffee not being right, where they put vanilla syrup instead of caramel syrup or something. That is not a moment to be serious. That is the moment to be playful. That is the moment to say, wow, how fascinating that I'm going to have a vanilla latte today instead of a caramel. This is wild. Let me see what happens. Because it's play. It's not about the outcome. And that's the discernment, right? Like when we are in a very urgent situation, then we can be urgent. But we save the urgency for only those dire situations. We don't bring that same urgency that we would have at a car accident into our experience at Starbucks. It is not appropriate, okay? So I hope that makes sense. And I hope you enjoyed today's little talk here. I do feel like I'm still a little under the weather. And the old me who took everything very seriously would now spend the next hour or so saying, "Oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't publish it. It's so terrible. I'm such a failure." But the playful me the playful me of today says, "Well, that's the one that we put out there today. Let's see what happens, because it's play." Let's see how it happens. The more often we can say that to ourselves, the more often we're going to be in that state of safety, social engagement, baseline parasympathetic nervous system, and the more we have access to the wonderful powers of our brain and our nervous system and our wisdom. And this is what's important, to keep us in that state of optimization so that we can show up as all of us. Because when you're taking things too seriously and you're feeling that tension and all those swirling, catastrophizing thoughts, you're not showing up as the full you. You're not showing up to this moment with all of you. And that's important, because in that moment, maybe a loved one is reaching out. Maybe, you're experiencing something that's really very special and you're not able to really experience it because you're lost. Just like Ram Dass was lost. Just like Art Burns gets lost. Just like Thich Nhat Hanh got lost. And so the idea is to recognize that moment by moment. And as we do, we can let go and we can bring ourselves back to a sense of play. And the last thing I'm going to say, and this is probably the most important, is that state of play promotes curiosity. It promotes our asking questions about our experiences as opposed to labeling and categorizing our experiences. Because labeling and categorizing are judging. And once we judge, we cling and we avert. And once we cling and we avert, we feel tension and we feel stress. Do you see how that comes together? All right, everybody. I hope you really enjoyed today. I know I did. It was great to be here with you again. Please reach out if you have any questions about any of this, or certainly on the YouTube, please like and subscribe and all that stuff. And if you can, rate and review on the podcast platform, I'd really appreciate it. All right, everybody. I wish you well, and I'll see you sometime soon. I don't know when. We're just playing by ear here, so we're gonna see where it goes. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate you. I'll be back soon. Take care.